Next, Professor Diljit Singh, a good friend of all of us. Professor Diljit Singh retired from Department of Library and Information Science, University of Malaya, Kuala Lumpur, and he served almost for 2 decades in that university. And he is also had a master's and PhD from Florida State University, USA, and he is currently adjunct professor at the University of Colombo in Sri Lanka and a visiting professor at the University of Philippines. He currently serves on editorial board of the library committees as well as international journals. Professor Diljit is also active in library associations at the local and international level. He is associated with IFLA on various committees, and also he is a professional research interest includes information literacy, management of libraries, and management of information service, school libraries, and of course library science education. Being a professor, automatically, I'm sure he has his experience and his ideas for the LIS education are very, very important, and I'm sure his experience helps us to learn a lot of things from him. I request Professor Diljit Singh to present his presentation. Thank you, sir.
Let's get back to it. Thank you very much for that kind introduction, Professor Laxman. It's a pleasure to be here online. To distinguished guests, fellow presenters, and panelists, and ladies and gentlemen. Depending on which time zone you are in, it's either good morning, good afternoon. I know in Canada it's already good evening. So this is the nice thing about online presentations, virtual summits, where you can be from any part of the world and still be following it. I'd like to thank Aligarh Muslim University for the invitation for this virtual summit. And I also especially want to thank Professor Laxman for his role in inviting me to this virtual summit. It's a pleasure to be here, to join you all, to participate in this, to share a little bit about my experiences, my knowledge, and the views that I have on library and information science education in Malaysia. I bring you greetings from the librarians in Malaysia. Some of you may know them. Some of you have visited Malaysia and have met them, especially those who came during the IFLA Congress 2 years ago. Professor Laxman has introduced me, but this is a little bit about myself. I retired from the University of Malaya. I'm currently adjunct professor in 2 universities, one in Sri Lanka and one in Philippines. I keep myself active by being on the editorial boards of a number of journals, including 3 of the international journals, one of them being the IFLA journal. And I hope that those who are into research will consider writing for the international journals. I also keep myself active by being involved in professional associations. Dr. Buwa just now had the logo of the IASL, the International Association of School Librarianship. I served as the past president of that association. I'm also still reasonably active in IFLA and a couple of the sections, but I'm also involved in one of the working committees under the SET that Christine mentioned, that is on building strong LIS education. And you'll be hearing more about it over the next few months in terms of what are some of the things that we have been doing. What I aim to do here is basically to share some information on the current status, trends, and needs for library and information science education in Malaysia. Although I do have some regional and international experience, but I want to focus basically on Malaysia, which I think I know most about it in here. And what I'd like to talk about in the next 15-20 minutes or so is just to give you a little bit of background information about Malaysia, for those who are not so familiar with it, and then to talk about LIS education, the current status, the trends, some of the issues and challenges that we are facing, and what I feel or what we feel are the needs for the future. Most of you probably know Malaysia quite well. I think some of you have visited Malaysia, and for those who have visited, you're very welcome again. And for those who have not visited, you're welcome for the first time once the borders open up after this COVID pandemic. But just for information, the map shows you where we are located. We are about 3 hours flying time from Chennai, about 5 hours flying time from New Delhi. And we do get a fair number of Indian tourists visiting Malaysia for personal reasons, for professional reasons, for holidays and so on. So you're always welcome back to Malaysia once the borders open up after the pandemic. A little bit about the demographics of Malaysia. We have an area of approximately 330,000 kilometers squared. It's kind of hard to imagine, but we are about 1.5 times the size of UP in India. But in terms of population, we're only about 1/6 the population of UP. So it gives you an idea of the size and how crowded we are in there. In terms of languages, there's Malay, English, Chinese, Tamil, and a variety of other languages that are spoken here. We have a parliamentary system of democracy where elections are held every 5 years. And basically, we are a newly industrialized market economy. We're a developing country. In some ways, we may be at the same level as India. In some ways, maybe a little bit ahead. And in some ways, we are a little bit behind. We have approximately 10,000 schools nationwide, and the education system comprises of 6 years primary, 5 years secondary, and then the post-secondary education. Our literacy rate is about 98%. We're trying to improve on it, but there are still some of the rural areas where the children are not able to read and write. In terms of higher education, we have approximately 20 public universities, 53 private universities, including some international universities, big and small, and about 500 colleges or so. These are approximate numbers in terms of giving you an idea of the education system. In terms of libraries, we have approximately about 15,000 libraries all over the country. One national library located in Kuala Lumpur. We have about 350 public libraries, about 1,200 rural libraries, about 600 academic libraries in the universities, colleges, and so on. About 800 libraries in government departments, in large private sector organizations, and so on. We have about 11,000 school libraries. About 10,000 of those are government public schools, and slightly more than about 500 in the private schools. And then we've got other small libraries that exist, for example, in the mosques, in the churches, in the temples, in non-governmental organizations, and so on. So those are very small in number, but nevertheless, they still have the potential to play an important role in that. So that's a little bit about the background to Malaysia. In terms of the LIS education, which I would like to focus on, we started our library LIS education about 65 years ago, when this was there were short courses being conducted by the Malayan Library Group, which was the precursor of the Library Association of Malaysia, and which about 10-15 years ago changed the name to Librarians Association of Malaysia. Of course, these were sort of very on an ad hoc basis, small, short courses being conducted. And then in the 1960s, they became a little bit more advanced, where they had part-time classes being conducted for the ALA, the Associate of Library Association of UK examination. Those who are senior members in the group may remember the ALA qualification that was held. The real formal courses started off in 1972, when the Mara Institute of Technology started offering diploma level courses. And then about 20 years later, this is about 30 years ago, the Mara upgraded their program to a bachelor's degree, And a year later, the International Islamic University started the master's program. In 1994, University of Malaya, where I served, started this master's program. And then University of Selangor joined in, and eventually the number of programs has increased both in terms of numbers as well as in terms of the level of the program being offered. Right now, we have 5 universities offering LIS programs ranging from the diploma to the PhD program. Mara University is the oldest and probably the largest. It is the largest in terms of student numbers. The International Islamic University, also located just outside of Kuala Lumpur, offers the master's and PhD programs. University of Malaya again focuses on the master's and PhD programs. University Selangor, which is a relatively newcomer, focuses on the diploma and bachelor's program. And we have an Islamic Science University, which is actually quite near to my home, which offers a bachelor's degree program in there. This is the details of the courses that are being offered by the various universities. Mara University of Technology offers diploma with specializations, Bachelor of Information Science, Master of Science with specializations, and the PhD program. And as I said, they are the oldest as well as the largest in terms of the numbers in there. The International Islamic University offers the master's program and the PhD. The master's is offered both by coursework and research. In the coursework program, they do a minimum small research project, whereas in the coursework and research program, about 1/3 of the program is dedicated towards research. University of Malaya, where I offers again the master's and the PhD program. The master's program is offered by coursework only, research, and then you can also do, and then we offer the PhD program. The difference between University of Malaya and the other 4 institutions that offer is that we are very much focused on research. We produce our own library journal, the Malaysian Journal of Library and Information Science, which is indexed in SSCI and Scopus and the major indexing ones. So our focus is on research. Our faculty members, our students have done well. So University of Malaya is fairly international in terms of the student programs in there. And even in terms of the faculty, we have had visiting professors, including one who he still is attached to the Indian Institute of Management in Kozhikode down south. And we also had somebody from the Philippines some years ago, and a few others. The University of Selangor is a fairly common information science university. Malaysia offers a Bachelor of Sunnah Studies with enrichment, and the program is offered in a combination of English and Arabic. I mean, the fact that it is an Islamic university, the focus is on the collaborate this from the culture. So that's all in the progression information. The increasing usage in many places, although we do not offer a distance education program as yet, but it has been considered, and in the program itself there is a fair amount of use of technology. For example, at the University of Malaya, where I was, we are located within the Faculty of Computer Science and Information Technology. And naturally, there are lots of computers and technology around us for us to use. We also see a change in the role of the graduates, where 20 years ago, we were producing basically librarians. Today, they are educators, whether they're in the school or in the colleges or teaching LIS education. They are involved in digital library building and development of digital libraries. So they are working behind the scenes, not so much of cataloging, classification in there. They're also working as research partners in the private sector organizations or in government departments. And the graduates that we are producing are no longer the traditional librarians. So this is one of the friends, but it's also a challenge that we are facing. We also are experiencing increasing globalization. We have students who have come from different countries. We've had lecturers serving as visiting lecturers from different countries. And certainly the resources that we make use of, whether they are print or online or human, they come from many different countries. And what we realize is that because our students are coming from different countries, some of them go back to their home countries. Some are looking as an opportunity to move to a more developed country. So our graduates must be able to serve in many countries, and they are not just for Malaysia. We also see the role of research changing. We want our librarians to become research consumers. We want them to be reading research. We want them to be making use of the research that they have in the libraries or that is accessible to them, and to be able to improve their own practices. Many librarians serve as research facilitators, especially those who are working in the universities and colleges. They are helping the lecturers to do research. They provide them with materials, they put out to them the resources that are available to do their research. And we're beginning to see more librarians becoming research partners, where you find that somebody from one department or faculty teams up with a librarian to become joint partner in the research project. When they publish a paper or when they present at a conference, they are both as presenters there. And what we're trying to encourage, and it is moving to a certain extent, is that librarians themselves become researchers. They do the research, they present the research, and share the findings in there for others in there. And we are beginning to see that happening because at our library conferences, there are more librarians who are presenting in terms of the journal publications. There are a number of librarians who are publishing their papers. So it is a good sign that we are moving forward in that way. Well, like any other program, we do have our issues and challenges. We have our difficulties. One of the difficulties that we have is that we do not have a monopoly in providing information. While we have talked about it just now and some of the previous presenters, that the library is a source of information. Yes, but there are many other sources of information that the users can look into. There is the internet, there's the social media, there is the telecommunication systems that we have. And, it's not always that they go to the library as the source of information. The library is a source of information. It is one source of information, but there are other sources that are available to them. We also need to be we also have the challenge of attracting the right mix of students. We want library and information science to be attracting the best students. We want them to be coming from a diversity of backgrounds. We want them to be able to be flexible in their outlook, in the sense that once I graduate, I may not be working in the library. I want to be able to work in many different places in there. So this is one of the challenges that we have in terms of attracting the students who are open in terms of what they would want to do after graduation. We also have the challenge of balancing between the traditional and emerging needs. Traditionally, we know that many of the libraries will go and work in the academic library or public library or special library or different types in there. And the things they will be doing are cataloging, classification, sourcing for information retrieval, helping the users, and so on. But there are emerging areas such as research data management, such as looking at the user experience, such as digital humanities, such as embedded librarianship. And now with open science becoming more and more important, we want to be able to balance the thing. But this is one of the challenges that we're facing. How do we balance what is traditionally needed, and how do we incorporate the new areas that they also need in there? And with this COVID-19 pandemic that is going on, we know that there are going to be many changes. There are changes that are taking place now. But once the pandemic is over, there will be changes. Things will become different. What may become a new normal. But what are the changes that are going to take place? That's where we have to start by understanding the user's needs. What is it that they really want? If we are providing about online services, that Christine mentioned just now, that not everybody can access the online services. So how do we provide that kind of services to them in there? And one of the things that we are going to have to get used to is that the resources are going to be limited. The funding that we are going to be getting next year and probably the year after that is going to be limited. There are a number of industries that are facing severe financial problems. The airlines are facing severe problems. The hotel and tourism industry are facing severe problems. The small business people are facing severe problems. So with these people facing severe problems, governments and other agencies are not going to be able to provide us with the budget that we would like to have. So if we have a smaller budget, how do we do it? What do we do? This is something that we need to give some thought to. So what are some of the needs that we need to consider? We need to look into what are the future needs, which is not easy. But we also need to look in terms of marketing the program. Professor Koraju just now mentioned about attracting the right kind of faculty lecturers in there. Well, we also need to be attracting the right kind of students in there so that they are aware of it in there. We need to be able to market the program so that the top students will want to enter the LIS program. In India, forgive me if I'm wrong on it, but the students who score very high in the high school examinations, their top choice is, I want to go to the IIT. How many of them want to say, I want to go to the Library and Information Science program? I think the numbers are very small. So this is where we need to keep that in mind. We also, in education, need to provide continuing education to those who are already working. Librarians graduate at the age of 23, 24, 25, or maybe slightly older. They continue working until they're 60 years old. The education that they acquired when they were in college or university is not going to be enough until they carry on. So this is where somewhere they need to work on it. And two areas which are, to me, I am very passionate about, that's why I kind of highlighted them in a different color, is to demonstrate the value or impact